So it was an hour since I was at the mall talking about addiction, right? So, right, there's usually reasons why you want to stop something and quit addiction in the first place. You'd think at a park you wouldn't get much noise, but apparently everywhere you go there's noise. Again, stuff I could probably cut out of this video. Anyway. So yeah, like, there's usually reasons why you want to stop, or your reasons sometimes you even question why you started, right? So when I was finishing off last time, I was saying, if life is really good, if you were so busy, you're an A-list celebrity getting flown all over, you have to do interviews, you're not going to be smoking, right? I'm not going to be smoking cannabis because, frankly, life is just too fun anyway, right? I'm getting to meet amazing people. I'm doing things that it would just hinder me from continuing on. I guess there are celebrities who, after they're done everything, they might end up doing that cannabis at a party or something, but for them, in those cases, at least initially, they didn't start because they were trying to fill some void. It was just something that they did at a party, I think, because it was the thing to do at a party when you're a celebrity. And the other time, you actually don't ever feel like, sometimes the other time when you're not addicted to something is actually the other extreme. So sometimes life is just can get really bad. So if you hit like a rock bottom, your rock bottom, whatever that is, all of a sudden you don't want to go back into your vice anymore. You you just feel so crappy and so down that you're like, why would I even do that? Not because you don't want to feel any worse, it's just, you just know you're not going to feel any better. Like, it's just, what's even the point? So it's almost that middle ground in life when you kind of want to just, when addiction's, I feel like, pretty prominent. And I think there was a point in time too, especially for me, when I just, like, it was hard to not want to, you know, do it because I didn't have anything really lined up that I was that I had to get done, really, you know? I didn't have, I might have had goals, but, you know, it wouldn't have been hindered necessarily by me smoking. It wouldn't have, you know, been enough, right? And I also kind of maybe had some sort of, I guess the best way to say is I maybe had some resentment, you know? Maybe I didn't like, you know, how society was structured. I thought it was just such a, you know, I didn't like the suburbs. I don't like how every store is the same. I didn't like how things maybe were getting more expensive. And the way I dealt with that was basically, I just continued on, and I thought, hey, that was probably the best way for me to kind of get through everything, is just to, you know, make it a little bit better by taking the edge off. That's how a lot of people put it, at least, you know, take the edge off. So that's usually where you're at, right? You might be you can be at a low point where you don't want to do it, like a really low point. The middle point where you kind of want to keep going, and you could be at the top tier where you're like, why would I even bother? Because it's just going to slow me down. So anyway, sometimes that's kind of the reasoning I find for people wanting to do it. So now I want to get into how you actually stop. So the first key, again, is you want to have to stop. You need a reason to do it. Otherwise, you might just want to continue doing it. Another thing you might want a reason to stop is you just need to change your actual framing of it, right? Because one situation that can happen is you can see things incorrectly, right? You might think that you have enough of it figured out, right? So with cannabis, a lot of times people would say, okay, this is helping my creativity, it's either helping my focus, it's helping me become less distracted, whatever it is. And that is almost some of the biggest hurdle, is you believe it. And I'm not trying to convince you one way or another that cannabis can't be a tool for that or not. But what you have to do to overcome is you actually have to realize that those things that you believe can actually be framed differently. Maybe instead of making you more creative, it's making you less creative because you could have more time focused elsewhere. Maybe instead of, you know, reducing the distractions by mellowing you out, it's actually increasing how much you're distracted by you're always thinking about it. Sometimes you might think it makes you happier, but really it's not necessarily making you happier. So you really have to get into that state of mind where you genuinely believe, okay, that's maybe not how it is. So that is a big way that'll help you out if you're needing to help out, is just to see it in a different way. You have to convince yourself that you might not be correct. You might not actually have that, you know, it might not be right. Back to that first point, this is point number 2. So realizing that your habit is actually hindering you from achieving 100% of what you're trying to do. Okay, so let's say for instance, you know, you're actually, like I said before, maybe you thought it was helping your creativity and it's hindering you. But from the very root of it too, you can even think of it super logically, right? If you are addicted to something, that's something that's gonna take time out of your day in one way or another. So either you're gonna have to go out of your way and you're gonna have to get a hold of stuff. And to do that, you know, that's gonna take 10, 15 minutes to actually find someone who can supply you with something. Maybe with me with cannabis, I would actually have to pack a bowl. That would take time. I'd have to clean the stuff later. That's literally time out of my day that I'm now not focusing on something else. You know, when it comes, so that's actually applied to, I've heard in AA meetings if you're an alcoholic. Some music I hear up ahead of me. Wonder if that'll be an issue. Anyway, so yeah, in AA meetings, what they often do is you need to let go and you need to devote yourself to a higher power. Some music is just getting louder as I walk towards it. So yeah, in AA meetings, they actually bring in a religious aspect to it, which is actually a reason why a lot of people don't like it. Because, you know, they kind of went into an AA meeting thinking that'll help, but then they end up realizing, okay, they need me to believe in God in order for me to actually quit. But the way that that can be effective for people is if you really are devoted to something, say you're devoted to, you become religious, you're devoted to God, all of a sudden you have a greater purpose. You don't have that 10-15 minutes all of a sudden to dedicate to pack a bowl. You don't have that. Not only that, but for them they take it to another level with religion where you're less connected to God. You're less connected to whatever it is. So maybe you're not religious. Someone in seating up there is just listening to that music really loudly. Like, I swear, I go to a park thinking, okay, couldn't be worse than the mall, right? Anyway, it's hard not to be distracted by some early 2000s pop music being played in a park. But I'm gonna have to do it. So that's the whole thing, is like, you know, if you're so devoted to something, all of a sudden, that 100%, when you're addicted to something, goes down to, you know, 90, whatever, less than that. And you just don't want to have that impacting you, because now it's just taking away from your focus. So say you're not religious, change that framing. Say, okay, I really want to achieve something, you know? Doesn't mean you have to achieve something really grandiose, but just whatever you want to get a little bit closer to, be a bit more productive about, then that's what you have to do. Is you have to cut out those elements that are hindering you in that way. So if you frame it that way, where you're like, okay, you know what? I realize that my addiction, maybe you still don't believe it's helping you, but you still can't deny the fact that those 10, 15, 20, 30 up to an hour a day you're spending on it is just taking away from your productivity. It's just not bringing you up to 100%. Now the guy stops his music. All right, point number 3. I came up with all these points too, by the way. This is what you got to do. If you're gonna listen to someone who's gonna give you advice on something, make sure they've walked the walk, make sure that they're actually in a position to kind of talk about it a bit too. Again, I'm only 2 weeks or so away from not consuming, so I haven't hit some landmark 1 year, half a year mark or anything like that. But I also wouldn't be making this video if I didn't believe that I either had a change of mind or I just kind of, you know, was able to relay something that I truly believe. So, next point. Point number 3. This is not so much of a point, this is actually just a way to help you. So, there's something called the 3-day hump. The 3-day hump is just, takes 3 days approximately to get over something in order to not have that addiction. So day 1, you're gonna feel a sense of loss, a sense of withdrawal. Day 2, same deal, maybe a bit less. By day 3, all of a sudden, your body has just gotten to the point where it's accepted that, okay, I don't desire it on the same level. The urges has just kind of gone away. So no matter what you're addicted to, after the 3-day hump, it does become a lot easier. So that's a little trick, it's a little tactic if you're ever just trying to get to a certain point. Work for those 3 days and you'll just notice how much easier it suddenly gets, and that might even be a boost to confidence once you get to that point too. So keep that in mind and just stick with it. So during that 3 days, point number 4, you need to separate or limit your exposure to people with the same addiction. So you'll hear a lot of times too, you need to cut those people out of your life, man. Those people that are, you know, that are making it so that like you want to go back to your old lifestyle and stuff. And that can work, but at the very least, just try and maybe limit your exposure to those people or that lifestyle, right? Try and keep it at bay, just, you know, keep it at arm's length. Do what you can just to avoid going down that wrong route if you can a bit, you know what I mean? I'm not saying you want to cut people out of your life or whatever. I mean, it can get to that point if some people are really not helpful and you're just, you know, not doing any better because of it. But at the very least, just limit your exposure, right? Because you want to be exposed to something as you're trying to avoid it. It's just going to be that much harder, right? Like I said, I'm 2 weeks into not smoking cannabis at least. And if I go to a comedy show or if I'm around other people who are smoking, there is a chance I'll want to puff on a joint. And I even mentioned at the beginning of this video, I didn't quit smoking cannabis, I stopped. So I might actually go and puff on that joint. I want to get into that a bit in a second too, but that's the difference is if I'm around that, I'm going to want to do it more likely. Just for a social reason, not even because I'll smell it and all of a sudden, oh, I get that craving. It's just, to reject it, it just seems a bit unnatural. For me, who as someone who used to do it, you know, I'm sort of almost just going against what was familiar with me, to me, and I don't necessarily want to change that much. But you know, some people, if you want to just, if that's what you think is best, maybe do that. But for me, I just want to stop. I don't want to quit. It's a bit of a difference. Number 5. Recognize that your addiction or your habit is attached to pride. So that can seem a bit counterintuitive, I guess, because, you know, are you proud of your addiction? Well, yeah, you might be associating it with pride. So with pride, what do I mean? So with me, I grew cannabis. I grew great cannabis. I knew people, and it was a part of my identity. I liked the fact that, you know, I invested time in something and I was good at it. Maybe in some cases you could be a dealer, right? You could be like, you could feel like you're cool with that shit, right? Like it's a pride thing. So to actually overcome that, you have to get over the fact that, like, okay, I have to suck out my pride and I have to just realize that I need to move past this now, and I need to accept that, okay, it's just now not gonna be something that I'm gonna gravitate to. All right, again, I gotta give credit where credit's due. So this wasn't even something that was given or passed to me as like an addiction tip or anything, but I did pick up on this concept from watching video of Math Hoffa. I feel like he says his name better than I do. He basically does hour-long videos where he'll go and talk to the chat. And in one point in one of his hour-long videos, I definitely can't find the one where he was talking about it. And it was only a quick point that he said it to. He just basically said, or someone asked, like, why do people who are still in the streets, like, why do they still keep dealing drugs? And it was just sort of he just answered it pretty straightforward, like, it's a pride thing. And that kind of made sense to me when it comes to addiction too. Or, you know, if you're someone who's actually dealing that drug and using it, then yeah, it's a pride thing in that way also. But that just stuck with me when he said that. He's like, pride. And I really thought about that. I thought, damn, that really is it. Because it's not even about the thing anymore. It's just about the fact that it's tied to you. It's all what you identify with. It's a pride thing. Anyway, shout out to Math Hoffa. He's a battle rapper. Yeah. Which is hard because you're basically giving up a part of your lifestyle, or you're trading it off. It's unnatural. It's a part of your identity, but it is a pride thing. It's just you don't want to kind of almost admit that you were doing something wrong. And maybe you're not doing something wrong, but my point is, for you to change or for you to adapt, you have to see that your past habit, your addiction or whatever, just wasn't something you actually still desired to do. So you need to frame it as though, hey, I'm not prideful of that anymore, right? Or you need to just get something else to be, to take pride in. Point number 6. So we've already gone through 5 here. So again, with pride, you might have to actually, number 6 is acknowledge that at one point in time, the addiction actually might have been helpful. So that seems odd, but no, seriously. I was smoking cannabis for 3 years. You know what I wasn't doing? I wasn't addicted to alcohol. I wasn't addicted to hard drugs. I didn't rot my teeth out. Cannabis, it allowed me to what I call time travel. By that means I was able to kill a lot of time. Oh man, I'm returning back to the guy with the music. I was able to time travel. And through that, I could all of a sudden get either work done, or I could just keep myself out of trouble, right? Sometimes you see people 5-10 years down the road, and if they just did nothing, their life would have been better. Their life would have been okay because they wouldn't have gone so crazy trying to fill some void in some other way that was unhealthy. But maybe your addiction to whatever it was kept you away from all that shit. It was good. It was good enough. It was the lesser of two evils. I'll put it that way even. So acknowledge that it might have helped. And that's the worst thing. And sometimes people say, hey, addiction's always bad. They demonize your former habit. And it doesn't make sense to you because you're like, well, these people, look at their vices, look what the hell they're doing, right? At least mine was a bit more sensible, at least I had reason for it. So yeah, don't beat yourself up about that, right? Okay, I'm going back to point number 7 instead of jumping to 8. So point number 7, it's only 8 points. So point number 7 is just change your reward system. Find something else, basically. There is a lot of things that you can use to replace your addiction with, There's a lot of other vices, There's, like I said, eating is a big one. I'm not someone that had a problem with eating, but I still like good food, man. That's something that I enjoy. Doing something else, working out. People can actually get addicted to working out once they've quit their addictions, interestingly enough. but it's just another thing you can kind of just pick up. There's a lot of other things you can do to change your reward system. So sometimes it's just you had an addiction that was just a really easy reward and that was it. But yeah, number 8. So just don't beat yourself up while you're trying to quit. So this is where I wanted to finish off at, because I mentioned earlier, I stopped smoking. I didn't quit smoking. What that means is if I have a puff of a joint, I don't want to beat myself up about it, because frankly, I don't want to be even someone who all of a sudden just has to quit cold turkey, or they have to just separate themselves entirely away from people who are smoking. You know, it's like people who, if you're an alcoholic, and it could be different because it might be a different brain chemistry and everything, but with alcohol, people who have stopped, they can't have one drink. Yet there are people who can have a beer on occasion and be fine. I want to be one of those people who can have a beer on occasion and be fine, and I already am, but I want to be someone who can do that with smoking too. I think that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is you want to get to that point where you can actually have so much control, and it's just such a non-factor to where if you do it, you just don't identify with it. It's just something you did, and that's it. But it's hard to get to that point if you're going to beat yourself up by even doing it, right? So say in the first few days when I was trying to just stop, doing it cold turkey, it's still a bit unnatural. You can do the 3-day hump thing and it'll really help. But again, cold turkey just doesn't necessarily make sense. But on the third day or so, I did have a puff of a joint. I was sitting by my computer. Again, I used to pack these really large bowls, take a really large amount in one sitting. And then so I said, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna have a small puff of a joint. My tolerance is a lot lower. It'll still do something for me. And I did. I think I had like a somewhat stressful day, but I was just, you know, I put in maybe a lot of hours that day, and I just thought, you know, I'll have a little bit, take the edge off, see if this is still for me in some ways or whatever. And I was smoking it. I think I did finish it. And then a couple days later, you know, I didn't smoke the next day, but then the day after that, same thing, rolled one up. And then I had half of it. I didn't even want to finish the rest of the half. But when I was doing it, I didn't hate myself. I didn't think, okay, I told myself I kind of wanted to quit. And I wanted to stop, not quit. I didn't see it like as a big deal. I just thought, okay, you know what? I might have had a point of a weakness or whatever, but it wasn't something that I needed to be so self-critical of. I know I was still trying to make an effort, and I realized how I was in the moment, in the present. And since then, I haven't wanted to do it. I just don't want to. I have no inclination right now today to want to do that. Could that change in the future? Possibly. If I'm around a lot of people and it makes sense and I really want to get into it again, I guess it could happen. But I think the worst thing you can do is by setting such a standard for yourself where if you do it, you hate yourself, and then you just get in such a rut that you're thinking, okay, you know what? If I'm gonna feel this crappy, I might as well just go back, because you know what? Like, I have some stuff to do this month. I want to get back on track, and if I'm thinking about this and I'm failing, what's even the point? Let me just keep going back to where I was. Except the fact that you're just, you know, taking little steps at a time, maybe even. Maybe you're just testing the waters, seeing if you can quit. That's the best thing I can recommend. And it should help a lot too. So I think in the end, that's kind of what the best approach will be, is you just go and you realize, okay, I'm on this path. I've done all these steps. I've kind of put it in the right condition. I mean, I've put in the right framing, right? And you're on your way. So I hope that helps with addiction. Let me just kind of maybe run through each of the 8 steps or 8 things I've mentioned earlier. Again, these are 8 things I came up with over time, and they've all made sense to me. Maybe one of them will really stick with you. Maybe that's all it takes, right? Maybe all you needed was a 3-day hump this whole time. All you needed to just do is stop for 3 days and you're like, oh, that was it? Changing your framing, I think that's one of the biggest ones, right? So instead of seeing it as it's helping you and making you more creative or taking the edge off, realize it's actually making you more stressed. Number 2, like it's making it so you're not at your 100%. Objectively so, right? It's taking minutes off of your day that you would have been doing otherwise, because you're preparing, you're cleaning out your piece, you're having to find a dealer, whatever it is. Number 3, the 3-day hump. Number 4, separate and limit exposure. So just, you might have just such a people around you that it's just so hard because it's so enticing to do, you know? It helps if you have people around you who are going to help you avoid it, and even more so, it's just going to be much harder if you have so much exposure to it. So number 5, realize it's attached to pride. You were proud of it, man. You were proud of that lifestyle. It was, you know, you had reason to take pride in that shit. I was really good at growing cannabis. I found some of the best genetics. Still proud of it. But it doesn't mean that I need to keep being proud of that. It doesn't mean that, you know, maybe you're like the best drug dealer on the block, and like to stop dealing drugs and smoking it, or stop smoking while you're dealing it, is weird. But again, that's just your pride, man. And it's hard, but it's just realize that it's pride too. Number 6, acknowledge that your addiction helped. Don't listen to these people saying that like being addicted to something wasn't helpful. Maybe it was actually putting you at a competitive advantage, or it was making it a lesser of two evils. You wanted to do it, and by doing it, you didn't get addicted to something even worse. You got ultimately to a better place in life by just not succumbing to something different or whatever it was. So I'd realize it might have helped, you know, at one point in time, and now it's just less helpful. It's just less so. Number 7, change your reward system. So you could just try and fill that void with something else. Just change your routine. Just do it. Find a new dopamine rush, man. Woman, find it. Number 8, don't beat yourself up about it. You know, if you're gonna succumb along the way, whatever. I mean, you're at least maybe trying to make a difference. Just don't beat yourself up about it if you can't go cold turkey. Again, that shouldn't necessarily be the goal anyway. Why do you want to be someone who can't have an occasional beer? Again, if your body and brain chemistry is such that you really just can't, I can't relate to that, but maybe that's how it is. But ideally, you want to be that person at a party. You can have 1 or 2, and that's how you are. So just don't beat yourself up about it. It's not the thing that's bad, it's your addiction to the thing that's bad. Working out's not bad, but being addicted to working out is bad. So that's why you don't beat yourself up about it, because you're making a difference, you're trying to take the right steps. So those are my 8 points in addiction. I really hope it helps. I'll try and provide some more resources for everything. But I just think that's a good starting point for anyone just to kind of realize. And you know, as much as I'd like to say that's all you need is these 8 points, there is a point in time when you might not want to stop being addicted. Like, you're in university, you're having a great time, everyone around you is doing it, whatever, I don't know. Like, you have to get to a point where you want to stop. If you don't want to stop, then what's the point? Like, if you see these people who are celebrities right away, and they have like these crazy addictions, I can't deny that they're enjoying it and liking doing it. They're enjoying the best sugar high ever. They're on like such a crazy upward trend of whatever they're at that, like, I can't weigh in on that. But at a certain point, if it just stops paying off, then that's kind of the idea, is like, okay, you've got to a place where you just don't want to do it. You just don't. You know, you could substitute with something better, or you want to cut it out. That's the idea, is like, you get to a point where it's just not where you want to be at for whatever reason. It's just not keeping you at 100% or whatever it is. So keep that all in mind, have good perspective of it, and I think that's it. That's all I can say right now. So this is the first video I want to record. I'm gonna do some more, and thanks for tuning in. Some feedback would be great. I'm gonna end up just wrapping this up now, and I might have a final clip at the end of this video. So cheers.